Hello! Today I'd like to share a snippet from S.F. Parkhurst's novel, Azazel's Scriptures, in the hope that it will pique your interest in reading the entire story. But first, let me provide a bit of background. Azazel's Scriptures is a fantasy set in 16th century England, following the journey of three friends: Simon, a teacher; Hugh, a writer; and Newt, a reluctant monk. When Newt learns about a hidden demonic book, Azazel's Scriptures, in his monastery, he shares its incredible history with his friends. Hugh publishes a version of this tale, inadvertently triggering the return of Dagons, immortal soul harvesters for the devil Azazel, who recover the long-lost book. Fortunately, Hugh's published version also attracts the attention of a knowledgeable professor and three druid sisters, Ravenel, Sybil and Elswith, who join forces with the friends to combat the Dagons. Three good-looking young friends and three attractive druid sisters. Well, I'll just let you speculate about that. Now, here is a scene from Chapter 11, where we find Hugh has been given a very unusual task by one of the druid sisters. The professor, whose face had turned fiery red, inhaled deeply, as if to bellow, but then apparently changed strategies, draining his fury to his clenched fists. "Now, Hugh, be reasonable and unlock the door. I've so much information to relay to you, but I need to be at my table where my papers are. Take me there, and we'll discuss the Dagons. They've got beasts they can summon after they've gained energy." When Hugh didn't respond, he tried again. "Ravenel will certainly want to know exactly what they are and what they can do. Only I know that. And there are other things. Things about the dragon, so open the door." "You know I can't do that, Professor, but I may be able to bring the papers to you." "Damn you, Hugh! You'll not get any more from me until that door is opened." He quickly bade the Professor goodbye and took off for the other end of the farm, near a grassy field. A strong wind picked up, lifting the hem of his coat and whistling around his ears. He was glad for it. He could no longer hear the outbursts coming from the dovecote. Making himself comfortable, he sat on the lee of a boulder to avoid the moonlight, still as death, and waited. Darkness came, and with it the sounds animals make when they think no human is around, and the unnerving voices of swishing grass, breaking twigs and rustling bracken. Each minute seemed like days. He had nothing to occupy himself with but the thought of Ravenel on the cold stone floor of the jail. Although he would never consider her completely helpless in any situation, he wondered at her collected mind. Had she complete faith in them, or did she have another plan? As Hugh pondered that, sleep beckoned, but his mind stopped on the threshold, mingling his surroundings with a stream of distant voices conversing on snakes, beasts and dragons. Everything he heard was coherent and clear until the light of day, when it all became nonsense. As he opened his tired eyes, he saw a ray of sunshine across his leg. It would be sunny, perfect for a gathering of snakes. He laughed to himself at the very idea that he was looking forward to such a thing. This time, the previous year, he'd been leading an ordinary life, and could never have imagined stalking snakes for an egg born of many that he'd have to catch. The birds began to sing, flitter from tree to tree, and tap their little feet along branches. He stayed motionless, watching for movement in the grass near the old stone fence that was studded with lichen and tufts of moss along its sides. A grey squirrel sprang down from a towering tree and scurried along the top, stopping to stand every so often to survey his surroundings. If there was a snake nearby, the squirrel didn't seem to notice. And then a heron landed within 5 feet of Hugh and studied him with its piercing yellow eyes. It stayed, to his surprise, and felt comfortable enough to draw up a skinny leg and tuck it into its plumage. Hours passed and he became hungry and stiff, but he didn't move. The sun stood at attention, and then it slipped to the west. He had not seen a single snake. His heart began to beat a little faster. With little time left, he decided to look elsewhere, He'd follow the fence line from a distance, keeping an eye out along the way, and then check a cluster of rocks on the other side of a small tor he'd passed on the way to the farm. If the snakes were inclined to hold an assembly on this bright afternoon, certainly they'd be in one of those places. With one quick motion, as silently as he could, so as not to disturb any creature, Hugh stood. And there, almost at the end of his nose, on the boulder he'd been leaning on all night and day, was a reddish-brown mass, marked by a distinct black zigzag pattern, writhing and squirming while slathering a thick, milky substance on one another. He froze. Barely breathing, trying not to blink, he watched in horror and amazement as the adders spit, oozed and rubbed. There must have been 15 of them, but they were so intertwined he could not tell. At first they moved slowly, almost rhythmically. Then it became faster and faster, with such furious motion that he thought the end was near. He readied his cloak, and there it was. Shot from the centre of the mass, the egg-shaped thing with bluish veins beneath its surface, sailed into the air and toward the heron. Hugh lunged and caught it right above the bird's open beak. He turned on his heel and ran toward the stream, the same that had saved Ravenel and Sybil from the dragon's fire. As he struggled with the rocky footing at the edge, he felt a sharp pain on the back of his leg. He instantly knew what it was, and not wanting another, he flung himself into the current. Landing awkwardly, he flailed about, labouring to set himself right while holding onto the egg. The stream was deep in the channel, and he could not find the bottom, so he turned on his back and floated. He used his free arm to propel himself close enough to the other shore, where he could place a foot. Encumbered by his saturated clothes, Hugh crawled until he found a shallow place to sit. There he placed the egg in the water and watched it float upstream for a short length before snatching it up again. It was good. Wait, was Hugh just bitten by a snake on the back of his leg? And what did he need that strange egg for? Oh, and why was the professor locked in a dovecote? I thought he was on their side. And did he say Ravenel was in the jail?